And we're on. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and I'm here with Ed Carrasquillo, who a lot of you watching already know, but probably don't know everything about Ed, and there's a lot to know, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But Ed, thanks for saying yes, and it's great
Oh,
to have
thank
you
you.
here.
I appreciate this. I
Yeah.
always love talking
Well, you're so
and,
good at
and
it.
communicating. Yeah.
And you're good at that. Good at a lot of things. You've got more talent and gifts than anyone I think I know. Truly, I mean that. What I
Thanks.
mean, you can. There's nothing Ed cannot do, and
I appreciate it.
you've
Thank you.
been amazing to come bail Ellen and I out of not jail, but
Yeah,
out of
I would have done that.
you would have done that too.
Come
But
hell or high water,
yeah,
I would
that's
have
right.
done
You
that.
would have. But just we've had literally bail water. We've
That's
had
right.
situations that we've called Ed in emergencies, and we treasure you because you're always here, and we thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, where there's so many things that I want to share today with the group, and I'm still learning more and more about you, Ed. And I met you. What do you think? 10 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, well, the first time was the Namaste Center at the railroad tracks or
Right.
by the tracks.
Right.
Say
By
at the
the track.
railroad
Yeah.
tracks, but
That's
by
right.
the
Yeah.
tracks. They had
Yeah.
tracks running through the back of it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how long ago that was, but it was quite a while.
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. And well, and then you just fit right in and you became really my right hand in so many ways. And
We're family.
yeah, we are. We are truly brother and sister and
Yep.
family, and it's a wonderful thing. And
Yes, it
you
is.
brought a lot of light and love to the center and to us, and we just grew right along in that process.
Yep.
But before we talk about that, which we will, I want to just go back. I was asking you about your early life. I know your family heritage, both your parents are Puerto Rican,
Yeah.
but I thought they were born there, but they were actually born in the States.
Right. Well, my father was born in Puerto Rico
Yeah.
and he was raised there as a young boy and eventually made his way to New York State, where he met my mom. But my mom was born in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and she is from a Puerto Rican family, and her side of the family is more Taino Indian. My great grandmother was Taino and lived in a little Taino village in Puerto Rico, which we would visit every once in a while. So it was really it's really a fascinating history, actually, on both sides of the family, because my father's side of the family is from Spain originally. And so we have kind of that dynamic going, the Spaniard side and their history and the Puerto Rican side of that. And then the Taino Indian side on my mom's side, more indigenous and
Wow.
much more rural sides of Puerto Rico.
Wow, that is, well, it's Puerto Rico is, I've never been there, but everybody says it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And my memories of it, I remember the sand, we went to a beach where the sand was so fine. I mean, literally so fine that when you put it in your fingers, it was like rubbing talcum powder.
Oh, wow.
And the sensation of that actually even was in my dreams. I
Oh
would
my
dream
gosh.
of it going, wow, this is crazy stuff. So it was so soft.
Oh,
I
that's
couldn't
cool.
believe it. It was
Wow.
beautiful.
Oh, wow. That's, well,
So you're sitting underneath coconut palms
yeah. Hey, life
and
is
you're
good.
at the beach and the sand is talcum powder soft. And oh
Yeah.
man, it is great.
That is, well, I mentioned to you that Sandy, a gal I ordained into the ADL ministry a few years ago, she was my guest a few weeks ago, and
Yep.
she was live from Puerto Rico, where she
Oh,
lives
really?
now,
Yeah. She was
actually.
coming live from
Yeah,
there. Oh,
live
yeah. I
from
saw
Puerto
that one.
Rico.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was great, and
Yeah.
she loves it there. She just landed there a few years ago, but really loves it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, Ed, you've I don't even know where to begin,
Well, like
truly.
the Renaissance
Yeah,
man. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, Renaissance man. But I was asking you a few questions that I probably knew some and didn't know some, but I know I didn't know you were born in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
but you landed in New York on Long
Yep.
Island. You grew up there. And then what did you do? How old were you when you left Long Island?
I was my first year of high school. So I was 1978. I guess somewhere around 78,
Mhm.
79 is when I first came in, and I went into high school at Miami Beach Senior High School my sophomore year. And then in my junior year, we moved to Kendall
Yeah.
in South Miami. So I was living in Miami Beach
And
for
that
the
is the
first year.
hottest place on the planet right now. Do you hear that?
Yes, I
It's all
understand.
over the news. I mean,
Really?
they say that it
It's
is like the
it's
hottest place
stifling. Yeah.
in the world to live. I mean, not heat hot. I'm talking like cool hot, like the most hip
The
place,
hippest
the
place.
hippest place on the planet.
Well, a lot has happened in South Florida.
Yeah.
The Cuban population and the very ethnic and cultural growth, is particularly in South Florida, has attracted people from the Dominican
Mhm.
Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico, South America, Argentina. So it's a melting pot of a lot of ethnic Latino environments. And they know how to party, man.
Yeah.
They
Well,
they know how to party. So
yeah.
you put all those groups together
Yeah.
into
That's,
one city,
yeah. Well,
and then you say, create it. You
yeah.
know,
Well, they are.
they
They
are.
are.
They've created it. So
Yeah.
South Beach is rock and rolling. Fort Lauderdale, South
Mhm.
Beach, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, they're exploding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and good for that. I've spent quite a bit of time down there myself.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah. So I know that so you landed there in high school. The
Yep.
the one thing that cracks me up is, as we'll talk about all the things you've done, but you told me at one
All of
time
it.
you, not all of it. No, but a manicurist. How did you get
Yeah.
into that?
Well, manicure, well, here, how I originally got involved with it is I started a tanning business. And it was called Safer Tanning Corporation. And people may or may not like or agree with the tanning process with the synthetic tanning, which is the bulbs and stuff like that, tanning beds. But I got involved in that, and I set up my aunt and uncle's beauty salon in Long Island, New York, using all of my tanning equipment. Well, I've always been fascinated by art and every aspect of art. I've literally touched about everything that I could in the arts, from plaster of Paris to concrete, and I've done everything with it in between. So it was kind of a natural progression to be intrigued by nail art and manicuring, the forming of the nails, the painting, and then I took it to the next level. So when I started learning about nails and the manicurist stations, when I was setting up all of the beauty salons in Long Island, New York, my cousin Kristen sat there and she put a nail on me. She was just like, let me put a nail on you. And back then I had really super long hair and everything. So it was really,
Yeah.
pin little leather tie and, just sporting it up, in those days. So she put a nail on me and I was like, that's freaky. And I accidentally rammed my
Oh,
nail
no.
up into my nose. I had a little itch and I not used to it. So
Yeah.
but I was fascinated by the process because I was watching her do the process and stuff. So she taught me how to do nails, and I became very proficient at it. My specialty was fiberglass nails. I went from acrylic to fiberglass because the fiberglass nail, to me, seemed like a much more natural looking nail. It had transparency to it. It was very strong. It had a little flexibility to it. It didn't break or crack like some of the other acrylic nails did. And so I started
Do they still
specializing.
do fiberglass?
Yes, they do.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in fact, I can show you how to do it. I'll
Oh,
I'll,
that's,
I'll put a set on you
oh,
sometime. Yeah.
can't wait.
Yeah. So I set up my own station since I was there for a month or 2 months at a clip trying to establish the beauty salon itself because they knew nothing about the beauty industry. And I had been coming from the beauty industry and the tanning industry. So I helped to merge my talents to help my aunt and uncle get off the ground. So while I was doing that, I was helping to manage their store. I was managing my tanning operation. And I set up a station in their beauty salon, and I had my own nail manicure station. And as it turns out, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I was stealing the people's
Well, I'm sure there's lots of
clients.
reasons besides your talent. I'm sure the ladies loved you.
I had a dark tan,
Yeah.
I was always, at that time, I had a sailboat in Key Biscayne. So I was sailing out on my boat during the days and the evenings, and then flying over to New York with a dark tan and long hair
Oh,
and
God.
doing nails. So that turned out to be a riot.
Yeah.
And then I specialized in nail art. So I actually got involved with micro painting, which was literally I would put an entire beachscape with sailboats and birds and everything on your pinky nail or on your nail.
Yeah.
And because of that, I ended up in Coconut Grove painting grains of rice
Oh my gosh.
with alcohol inks. And I would put the same beach scene with sailboats that you would see on your nail.
How do
I
you
would do
do
that
that?
on a grain of rice.
What do you use? Like what kind of little
It is,
needle or something?
it's like a needle. It's actually a special pen that was like point 0.03 microns. So it's very, very small. And you load the cartridges of the colors that you wanted. So I had an array of pens, all with different colors. So I didn't have to interchange cartridges. And I literally would take a grain of rice, put it on a little wax, soft wax thing, and my magnifying glass, and I would literally put people holding hands, reaching out, pointing at the sun, all on a grain of rice.
Wow.
So that was kind of an interesting thing. And that was a really nice way to hustle up some dollars when you're sitting at the beach, because I would have a sign when I was in Key Biscayne. I'd be laying on the beach, grabbing a tan, and I'd have my sign out there saying, $6 nail art or two for $10.
Oh,
And
wow.
or a grain of sand, a grain of rice for
Right.
$10.
Wow.
So, and people would just walk up and say, "Is that real?" And I'd say, "Yeah." So I'd be doing all my art while I'm on the sand.
Wow. Well, yeah. So I didn't know you did I knew you did the nails. I didn't know you
Yeah.
did that, but you told me also that I didn't realize most of your younger life you were an artist. That's what
Yeah.
you did. Because I know you through your other talents and your music and your drums and your flutes and all of that, which you said came later, but
Yep.
you did a lot of cool things and down in Fort Lauderdale and
Oh yeah.
yeah, art.
Yeah, my art actually started when I was in kindergarten. My mom and teachers and so forth would pull my parents aside and say, he has a very, very high aptitude for the arts, his balance and organization skills and color arrangements at a very early age. In fact, she still has, I think, one or two of those pieces that was hanging in her refrigerator or whatever when I was like 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
And then when I got into South Florida and I started to evolve as a professional artist, because I didn't recognize really my talents as I was young, because it was just something very, very natural for me. I didn't really look at it as a skill set or as an aptitude or anything. It just seemed just natural for me to just draw and paint. And it allowed me to escape, some difficulties I would take to my arts in order to take up the darker times.
It's therapy.
It was therapy, though I didn't know that at the time, but I used it as therapy. And that's kind of like knowing all along that God has always had my hand. He's always put me in a position of rescue, self-rescue, or talents that I had developed within me that allowed me to escape. And that was a really cool thing. As I was in Fort Lauderdale, that was a really, really hot time for me in the arts, because I was recognized as one of the few artists in South Florida that actually worked with large scale polystyrene, foam, and fiberglass resined pieces. So I did massive tiki faces, Hawaiian tiki faces, and totem pieces for backyards and barbecues and stuff like that. And then I started getting into restaurants, stores, building large scale sculptures and airbrushing all of the colors on that, to ultimately doing the Baja Beach Club in Fort Lauderdale, which I was hired to design and create a theme for the entire Baja Beach Club in Fort Lauderdale, which was a very tropical theme with date palms, full-size date palms throughout the dance floor. And I did taxidermy kind of fish, life-size hammerhead sharks and
Wow.
great white sharks and remoras and stuff, all swimming out of their VIP aquarium room from the second floor over the dance floor. So there was a lot of stuff that was very specialized. And most artists didn't know how to even approach projects like that. And here I was 17, 18, 19 years old. And I was literally, I grabbed my chainsaw and my airbrush kit and I would build all the forms and have tanker trucks spray all the foam from tanker trucks onto these forms and then cut at them with my chainsaw and then fiberglass them and airbrush them and stuff like that. And then I built a large pineapple that was 12 foot high on a large car carrying trailer. And that was literally a store. It was a natural juice bar that would park in front of the beach as a giant pineapple. And I built the entire thing from scratch.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Then so when did, so moving forward, when did you get into your music, your flutes and your drums, and you've led drum circles, all that?
Yeah.
And and I know you moved up to West Palm at some point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true.
And I'm amazed. Well, you probably moved after we left, but I'm surprised we never crossed paths because there's so many.
We were in the same place.
Unity of the Palm Beaches.
I was at Unity of the Palm Beaches, and you had your program.
Yeah, Palm Beach Center for Living.
That's right. And they weren't very far from each other.
Yeah. Well, we were in Unity's backyard for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So let's see. So how did I get started with the music? Well, I'd always been fascinated by music. I played the accordion as a child. Then I went in when I was in junior high school. I was in band, so they put me into the tuba, and I was a very, very young, very skinny, very little kind of guy. And they put me into the biggest instrument, which was the tuba, which is crazy.
It's hilarious.
And so I did the tuba for one term, and then I said, no, this isn't working. So they put me into the trombone, and I played trombone for a couple of years. And then I got into drama and all that other stuff. But acting and music ended up now evolving in my life. So I got into my music when I was in St. Augustine. And I moved to St. Augustine, Florida, where I had purchased my very first drum from Africa, from the Ivory Coast, and got a djembe. And then I started playing that. I was already in woodwinds. I was playing because when I was out in California, I went to Yosemite National Park, and I went into the gift store there, and I saw a flute kit, which is a Native American flute kit that you can buy. It's a cedar kit, comes in 2 parts and all the pieces, and you're supposed to glue this thing together and sand it down and shape it and design it, and then you can learn to play it. So I did that, and that was fascinating, and I loved that whole design aspect, and that really kind of spurred the design and build aspects of music. That's how I really came to doing what I do today, which is build percussion instruments, build ukuleles, build flutes and stuff like that, is that I love not just playing the instruments and learning how to play them, but I learned the process of building and creating an instrument from scratch. So now I can literally cut a limb off of a tree and make a flute.
I've witnessed where you start a concept to completion, and it's amazing. Fun. I mean, really, what you do with the drums and the flutes, literally from just a raw piece of wood and a random piece of wood. It's not even,
Well, so that's somewhat part of the magic. Is when you really want to create. The best thing to do, especially if you want to impress, is take a limb off of a tree and make it play instrument, make it play music, so that's really cool.
Well, didgeridoo, you've built those.
Oh, plenty. All different styles and shapes. ultimately to the one that I build now, which I'm now being recognized for, which is the Bookdage. I think it was Meinl that actually made the first Bookdage. I think that's who the company was at first. And they took the technology from the Bose system and just wrapped, this chamber into a long chamber and condensed it down to a small little environment. So now my diges are only 10 inches by 8 inches
Oh, I
wide.
haven't seen one of those.
Oh, you haven't seen a Bookdage? Oh man,
No.
I'll have to.
Yeah, you have to show me.
You got to
Yeah,
try one of
gotta
the
try
Bookdage.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of your instruments, but I haven't seen that.
That's a
I'd love
really
to.
nice one. Yeah.
Because the ones I saw were big
Right.
when you were doing
That's
that
right.
at the Namaste Center. Yeah.
I built a lot of the wood ones, the long ones, and PVC diges,
Yeah,
which was
PVC,
the PVC.
which is cool.
Yeah, but then again, I had to take it to the next level. So I
Of
took out
course.
my heat gun and my torches and I melted it and I bent it and I made it look like natural wood. And then I stained it with wood stain and burnt little knots in it. And it looks like a regular piece of wood, but it's plastic. Yeah.
Well, I've never seen anybody do what you do with it, with anything. I mean,
Yeah,
have you, your creativity is mind-boggling to me. And even I'm thinking in our garage, I have a treadmill and I got that stand for the TV.
Yeah.
So I could watch TV. And I was looking for just 2 pieces of wood. And next thing I know, you didn't do that. I said, can you just build me a little stand, like just boom, boom. And now it's like this finished
It's a credenza.
stain. It's a credenza. It's gorgeous. And I'm like, oh, Ed.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, on my project now, I build custom homes during the week with Evergreen Builders, and we're finishing up a project right now. And the owner of the project has recognized my wood skills because I built some very specific pieces of furniture for their house that is only exclusively designed for specific areas of the house. So they were so impressed by that now they have this bunk bed set going upstairs.
Oh, wow.
And Michelle had asked or Jeff had says, would you mind if Ed builds your bunk bed set upstairs? And she says, please. He's like, yes. So she was laughing and she said, yeah, that would be great if you built it. And of course, Jeff is a fine builder. This guy's so meticulous itself. So he has every bit of the skill sets to do that without even question. But the fact that he's giving me the opportunity to design and build this very unique, very specialized bunk sleeping quarters for the kids for the upstairs bedroom in this brand new exclusive home. This is it's a really architecturally, it's a gorgeous house. And so it's absolutely my pleasure to build something like that. So yeah, I build some intricate things, but I can also build stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll say a funny story is, I was saying earlier, you have bailed Ellen and I out, not of jail, but of many situations. And a couple of years ago, we had a flood in our basement. It was a Sunday, of course.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And so we Ed, we had it help. So you come running over. It was our AC unit.
It's big HVAC.
A big
system,
HVAC. Yeah. You don't work with HVAC.
No.
Next thing you know, you put on YouTube, you find a video, you fixed it. But meanwhile, I had already called the company because we have a contract with them, and he came and he looked at it and he said, well, I hate to even charge you because when he fixed it already. And you just have that ability to figure things out. And you've got so many gifts. You should be a billionaire.
Oh yeah, I know, from your mouth to God's ears.
Right. God, yes. Ed should be a billionaire. Really, seriously.
Well, the thing is, and it was through my creative arts. I call it creative arts because it's not you don't go to class or to school to learn how to do many of the arts that I've done as far as sculpture work and glass work and stuff like that. That's something that you adapt and you learn on the fly. And through that process, I really literally became an engineer of sorts because you retrain your brain basically to not take the recipe of what somebody else has done to create something. you have to create from your mind's imagination. And you have to see all the components and the parts and pieces before you ever even do it, in order to understand what process you're going to go through. And it's not always 100% accurate, but it's that I developed since I was very young. I developed an engineering mind. And through that process, you also lose something called fear. So very many people are fearful of challenging something that they've never done.
Mm-hmm.
But when that's all you've known is to take what has never been done and you create it from scratch.
Yeah.
See, now you have enough confidence in yourself to understand that, well, what is it? It's just a process.
Well, you're not afraid of any of this.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So let me back up. There's a story that I don't know why it doesn't make me laugh because it's kind of pitiful and sad, but it is funny now that you're alive here, and that's the monkey story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that time.
How did that? You tell that story. How did that happen?
Well, my mom can tell you that I have always been attracted to exotic pets. And that's an understatement. I remember being in little leagues and being out in the fields, and all of a sudden I'm out in right field or left field because it was closest to the tree line. And I would disappear because I'd run off into the woods because it was a field beyond the tree line that had a big old fence, a sign down in the field. And I'd lift it up and I'd collect up all the king snakes and all the snakes that were running in every different direction. And I'd put them down my shirt and I'd put my mitt on and I'd get back out there to center field or to left field. And my shirt was crawling with all these snakes inside. And I would come back and I'd share them with all the guys back by the bullpen or whatever like that. And I would bring them home. And I drove my mom absolutely crazy with that. Well, as it turns out, that never stopped. So I was always attracted to exotic animals, exotic pets. So I ended up acquiring a monkey. And this was a large male Capuchin monkey, which I absolutely loved. His name was Mikey. And so I adopted him from a family who could no longer take care of him. And he was already a senior. He was already pretty old in his life. And he just needed somebody to take care of him. So I decided to do that. Well, make a long story short, not having him very long, the monkey ended up trying to get out of his crate that I had outside, a really very big, large enclosure with a tire hanging on a chain and everything for him to play and stuff. And he was a good kid. I loved him. He was just great. But I caught him in midair as he tried to jump over my head. And this monkey has literally like 2.5-inch canines, very sharp sets of incisors. And he literally chunked out my wrist and pulled it out, leaving my arteries ripped in 2 pieces, direct line from my heart, by the way. So it was very, very close to dying. I didn't know how close until I was admitted. But so anyway, so I'm a running faucet and my monkey is now in his enclosure. And so I was in the hospital for almost a month and a half, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty long because of the rabies thing. They thought that was going to be rabies. So literally my case made the front news paper in every paper across the nation, California, and even other parts of the world, because primate attacks are very rare. And when they do happen, it's a very, very big deal, apparently. Like if somebody gets mauled by a lion and they're living in Brooklyn, that's a story. I mean,
Where were you living?
I was living in South Miami.
Okay.
South Miami. And so you wouldn't have believed how many police officers, fire trucks, ambulances, they cordoned off 2 blocks around the house that I was laying on the ground at, well, I also lived there at the same time. I was expecting to see a ship like floating up the street, like I don't know, some Navy ship coming. I mean, helicopters were flying overhead. You wouldn't have believed it. I didn't even understand what was happening. I didn't know it was all about me, and they did. So anyway, so I was there. The monkey made the front page of every paper. People were following my story. They were calling the hospital to speak to me from the story that I read in the papers. And UCLA, I believe it was UCLA, sent out lawyers, a couple of lawyers and a physician to evaluate my case. So they visited me in the hospital, and they told me that they were going to, they wanted me to give them Mikey, turn Mikey over to
Yeah, I was
them.
going to ask you what happened to Mikey.
And they didn't need his body. They only needed his head. That to me was atrocious. First of all, I don't do that, number one. Number two, and they wanted his head for study. So they said it was for study because a primate attacking a human being, there's reason for that. They wanted to understand the process. I refuse to do that. Fortunately for me, Roger Rieger, the Rieger family, was very well known throughout the world as being one of the only domestic families, to have the largest population of Capuchin monkeys in captivity. And it was just happened to be in Florida, in Hialeah. And they raised Capuchin monkeys as organ grinder monkeys and for talent.
Wow.
And they were very well taken care of. These monkeys became their children, basically. They had round-the-clock vets to take care of all of their animals. So anytime something went wrong, the animals were well taken care of. They were on beautiful diets. They were around families and kids who trained them, took care of them, and all that stuff. So even though they were captive bred, for any of the animals, in like my case, where I had to give up my animal because of an unfortunate circumstance, there was at least a family who, instead of putting these animals down, took them with licenses, proper licenses and certificates and training and their history as being 2 or 3 generations of organ grinder family. And they decided to take Mikey, and I definitely released Mikey to them. So that was my story about the monkey bite.
Oh God,
it was a very scary time.
Well, I tell you, it made you world famous. That had me. I just think that's awful.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so Ed, I want to move into your spirituality, and I know you're Catholic. You were raised Catholic.
Yep.
You're back in the Catholic Church somewhat with your mother, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you also, we went to the same church in Florida, Unity at the Palm Beaches. And was
Chris
that
Jackson?
Chris Jackson? Yeah, great guy.
He is a great, great man. And if he's watching this, I love you, bro.
Yeah.
He changed my life, literally.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yep.
So how did you land at Unity? Was that?
I think just by luck, but it was kind of an unfortunate situation. I was with a person who I loved very much. And long story short, the love affair that I thought was going to last forever didn't. So I was devastated. I was crushed, to say the absolute least. It was probably one of the darkest times of loss of love that I can remember. And I was in a very dire emotional state, and many people who are watching this right now can probably relate to what it feels like when you have a broken heart. You no longer have trust in your life from a person or a companion that you entrusted that would be there, and you thought everything was beautiful. So you turn to whatever options that you hopefully have available. And the option that I thought of was to take my own life. That wasn't going to be, that was definitely going to be a part of my equation, because it felt very strong at the time that I did not want to live or go through life without her. So I have envisioned some very, very horrific ways of doing that. And when I found myself at the bottom, somebody introduced me to Unity. When I went there, it was what changed it. Yeah. And Chris Jackson and his partner counseled me. And I ended up participating in their services and became very friendly with Chris Jackson, and went to the services all the time. And it brought me back to the beauty of life and how precious it is. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and I'm certainly glad you're here and you found Chris.
Thanks.
And
Yes.
he is a remarkable guy. So
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And I miss him. You
Yeah.
know, when I was there, he went and transferred to Miami Beach.
Right. And
Yep. And
I
that
think
was it.
he's retired, I think.
He may
or
be.
he's
I mean,
back out.
'cause he had a lot of energy going
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
time.
But I think or if he hadn't retired, he's back out at Unity Village, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
talked to him in years, but anyway, he's spreading his fairy dust somewhere in a good way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, you get up here
Yep.
and what, the thing is that I know most about yet. I mean, I know a lot of is our experiences through the Namaste Center and all you
Yeah.
brought there, and you were, right there with me every Sunday, doing all the technical, playing your flute, doing all that, and helping people, and
Yeah.
just brought so much love and light into every service. And
Well, you were a part of that drive because you were inspiration to me. When I first met you at the Namaste Center, you had everything that a divine, enlightened person would be imagined to have. You smiled, you were jovial, you took care of us as if we were your children, and you were so cordial and so generous in everything, in every aspect of your faith and your generosity at the center, and your friendliness and your kindness. You created instant family. And for that reason, and it's probably for that reason alone, for you, I wanted to be much more of a help to you in order to ease some of that tension off. There were some technical difficulties in the beginning. We had some other people, Roland and so forth, were involved, but they had so much to do already. And I noticed that there was a need to come in and try to fulfill some of that obligation. So I stepped up to do that because I wanted you to succeed, and I wanted the Namaste Center to be what I had known it to be. It was a place of worship. It was a place for all of us to be family together and to serve God in the highest degree of love that we can. And that you were the inspiration behind that.
Well, you were we lifted each other up.
That's
and
right.
and I think that's so important too, is that we are here to lift each other up and to support each other. And you always say yes. People are always asking, Ed, can you help? Can you help? Can you help? And you always say yes, 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 yes. I've seen you with your tongue hanging out, no sleep, you haven't eaten in days, and you will put anything aside to help somebody. And that's rare. And I know that you really touched my niece Emily. She had she had gone for I forget what
It was a Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts, but there's their equivalent in the Girl Scouts to an Eagle Scout of the Boy
Right,
Scouts.
exactly.
And she loved your drumming, and she made that her project, and you held her hand through that and helped her, and that was a life changer for her. She loved
really
it.
I thought the drum circle part was when they came to visit. And I thought, because it was Emily. No, it wasn't Emily.
It was Emily.
That had asked me. No, it was her mom.
Well, it was Molly, my sister.
Molly.
Yeah.
She asked me if I would be interested in taking the girls and doing kind of a drum class and circle with them. And I said, absolutely. So I went back and I loaded up. We made a date and we met at the Namaste Center. And they loved it. It was really
Oh, they
great.
did.
Yeah, it was
They
really
did.
fantastic. And they did a great job.
Yeah. Well, Emily took it into,
That's right.
yeah, and she's even got a video and everything about
Yeah.
that. But she
She made it
really,
as one of her course requirements or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
exactly. And that was awesome. And
It's awesome.
yeah, so that's a great memory. And I've just been thinking about a couple of Namaste people that, well, we've lost many of them.
Yeah.
And but I remember when Terry passed, that was
devastating.
that was devastating.
Yeah.
And then Susan Marie, we were close to her.
Yeah.
And just lots of other beautiful souls that we
Yeah.
had there. It was interesting because I remember people used to come up and tell me, they'd say, we're really lucky here. We have not lost anybody in our community. We've even got all these older people here and everyone's still living and vibrant. And then it was like, oops, it was just like after that, it was just
Yeah. Well, we had some unfortunate circumstances with some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I reflect on with that is that Charlotte was the inspiration and the drive behind me being an ordained minister. And shortly after I was ordained is when Sue passed. Susan Vinci passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that as an ordained minister, we would be there for people and lift their spirits up when things are down and trying to help them through darker times by trying to be the light that was necessary at times for people in their dark times. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I say fortunately now, but one of the tasks that I had was to lead the memorial services for someone that I knew very well. And that wasn't easy. And that is part of what we do when we commit to our service in Christ and God, is as we are there for all of the services and needs of those people in our community, for all of it, whether it's to be married or to say goodbye.
Well, you did a beautiful service. That was really beautiful.
Yeah,
and Susan adored you, as you know.
As she did.
She did, as we all know.
That's right.
And anyway, so I'm thinking, we, for whatever reason, Namaste, its time was done. We're sort of percolating with some new ideas. Who knows where they'll go? It's in Spirit's hands, whatever that is. But you carried the torch and kept things going for quite a while after we closed the doors.
I tried to.
Hey, you did a great job. It just, things shift and change. And I think it's a lesson too in letting go and knowing when things have fulfilled their purpose and their need. And sometimes things need to shake out and reorganize for whatever reason.
Very true.
And one thing that I think is probably one of your most noble missions is exactly what you're doing right now. And that is sitting behind us is your beautiful mother. And you're bringing her up here to let her move in. She moved in with you. You're the best son ever. You get the gold plus star. No, serious. Right, Kathy?
Right.
Oh.
Can't be better than the rest.
Yes, you are. And so is Ed. But
yes, it works both ways.
I know it does. But that was not an easy thing for either one of you.
No, and it still isn't.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way. Like anytime you change your life in ways that you really didn't expect, there's good times and there's hard times. There's difficult times. There's always going to be challenges. And those challenges still be there, whether I was living by myself or with my mom. Just the challenges are different. But I am absolutely blessed to have her in my home. And I try to share as much of my life with her as I can. And she shares as much of her life with me as she can. So it's very important that she's still within her faith, which is the Catholic Church. And I have the means to be able to transport her there and to be there at her side while she's at worship. And then, of course, she's open to involving herself into the practices that I have as an interfaith minister. And she understands that there are maybe things that we see differently on in our faiths, but we still embrace each other's faith with admiration and trust and respect to each other's feelings, our differences. And because the differences are not major, they're just seeing the energies of life in a different way. So those practices, are quite different, but it's a blessing either way, so and she really enjoys and embraces my music and my customer base from all of my drums that I build and instruments that I build for people and that type of thing. So
And she's a great cook.
and she's a great cook.
She's a great cook.
Yeah.
So you're,
And she takes care of the house.
yeah,
And then I,
and you get to come home
I
to a
sometimes
delicious
do.
meal.
Yeah, I sometimes will. I've replaced the hot water heater, I've replaced the sink, I've replaced things,
Yeah.
that went bad and stuff. But it makes her comfortable and we needed to do it. So
Yeah, well, I think it's a win-win for
It
sure.
is, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And she overcame, your mom's a miracle.
Yeah,
She's bionic and a miracle.
yeah, she really is.
Yeah. And
She's overcome more things, more circumstances in life that most humans should endure. And that goes way beyond the physical. Of course, 2 bouts of cancer and mastectomies and stuff is hard enough on any individual, much less a woman who is very, very impressed upon by her own body, and she loves her body and stuff. And when that body is taken apart in a very dramatic way in order to save your own life, that is a turning point in one's life. And that is nothing next to the emotional stress that my mom has paid to life in many, many different ways. So she's a miracle. She's an angel. She has overcome stuff that I don't even know how I would ever do it or come through it. And she has done it. On the surface, you'd never know. Maybe she's still feeling things on the inside, but I think that she's come to terms with a lot of those difficulties and challenges in her life. And she's become a person where everywhere she goes, everyone falls in love with her. She does for the community. She's very faithful. She's strong to her faith. She's strong to her passions of love and friendship and family. So yeah, what more?
well, there you go. The fruit didn't fall far from the tree
Yeah.
yet. So that's
Thank you.
exactly you.
Oh yeah.
So there you
Thank
go. Now I know. Well, I knew that already, but your mom is remarkable
She
and
is.
so are you. And wow. So what's Ed's plans for tomorrow or the future?
Well,
What's your dream?
I've embraced the idea that every day that you live is another page in your book of life, your own book of life. Everybody's got one, whether you like to believe that or not. You can go back on your book and reflect through the pages of your life. You can look through the dark times, you look at the light times, and you look at the most beautiful times of your life. And every single one of those times is an experience, good, bad, or otherwise. So my book, if it had a title at all, would be simply Ed's Experience. And I try to make more experiences for every step that I take, especially those experiences that I've never had before. I'm not afraid to step out to something new. And I don't think you guys should be either. So if you're afraid of change, and if you're somehow you want to embrace more of life, but you're not quite sure how to do it, don't let the fears bother you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Step out and you'll be amazed at the results. And even if they don't turn out quite the way you want it to, it's still an experience. And more importantly, it's your experience. Not to be embarrassed by it, and not to take anything away from it. It is your experience. So embrace it, love it, challenge yourself, and step out and become much more than you ever thought you would ever be.
Beautifully said.
That's what I do every day of my life.
Well, and you do. You do
Thank
that.
you.
Yes. Well, Ed, you are a brother, a dear friend, and thank you so much for everything. You are a
Well,
blessing in my life, really.
Thank you. Same here,
Yeah.
Charlotte. You mean the world to me.
Well, ditto that.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you guys for tuning in. Share this with your friends, pass it along, and Ed, we'll see what tomorrow brings, and I'm sure it'll be good.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Namaste.
Peace.